It gives me great pleasure to introduce another Loyola professor. This time it's Professor Talmadge Wright. And he and I think we're going to talk about the Obama administration's few lessons from history, the need to organize from the bottom up in building a left movement in the United States. Good morning to you.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be here.
And what is your official title?
I'm an associate professor in sociology at Loyola.
Sociology.
Yes.
Many years in the sociology I did. So I love your name, and I want you to tell everyone, where did the name Talmadge come from?
Oh my God!
Somewhere in the back of my mind, there's a politician, a Talmadge something.
Yeah, there is, and it's not necessarily one with great luster. Let me tell you. Actually, I was named after my grandfather.
He was a Talmadge.
He was a Talmadge, but without the D in the center. He was captain in the Navy and was captain of the USS Canopus in the 1930s in China, and was one of the first of 80 submarine commanders in World War I to get the Navy Cross for crossing Atlantic in 1916. So I got his name, but I didn't get the first name, Percy, thank goodness. And so it really comes from, it's a southern name. I'm from Virginia originally, so
it had a ring of the Confederacy to me.
It does, but definitely my family were Yankees, I must say.
So how long have you been at Loyola?
At least since '91.
And how do you like it over there?
I like it. I love Loyola. We have good faculty, good students. It's a great campus. I have disagreements on occasion with the planning process, but for the most part, it's hard to imagine being anywhere else in terms of being in a supportive environment.
It is.
Especially for students that come here. I think that unlike many, and I've taught at UC Berkeley, I've taught at UC Davis in California. I'm from California after I moved from Virginia. And I must admit that having a Jesuit Catholic school that privileges social justice is really unique. And I think that if more campuses were putting more pressure on the social justice curriculum, it would help to initiate more of a change from the bottom up that we've been talking about.
Well, my sense is that universities throughout the country are talking more social justice. I mean, I'm sure there's a number of them moving to the right also, but I just saw that Kenneth Starr was named the new president at Baylor.
Oh, God.
And I'm never going to root for them in a football game. But your sense is, your experience is that Loyola is really true to the Jesuit social justice mission.
Well, I think there's a mixture, and let me be clear about this. This is not just Loyola. This is happening in higher education across the country, which is the influence of corporate money and corporate donors on the planning process, the curriculum process, etc. And I think that it's a serious problem. The corporatization of higher education and even K through 12 is compromising a lot of the critical thinking that goes on. It should be going on in the academy, and I believe that it's going to require sustained resistance for that to be opposed. It's part of the same process, of course. It's occurring in all segments of the economy, not just the universities. It's happening in business. It's happening in the military with privatization of private contracts. Part of the problem you have here is the influence of big money, which has been warned about for generations. Now we're seeing that it's coming to fruition, and it's seriously affecting the policy planning process, both in the Obama administration and in the university. So I don't see that Loyola is specifically the problem around here. I think the problem is much larger than Loyola, and it's much larger than any one individual campus. It's the what I would call the corporatization of higher education and the implementation of standards of performance that are connected to the idea of as you would in a marketplace, performing for particular status symbols that go on. So it's a problem. It's a problem if we're trying to promote critical, liberal thinking in this economy as opposed to technocratic thinking.
Well, there was a time when the only operation big enough to handle some things like going to the moon was the federal government. And, then the corporations reaped the benefits of that, whether it was Tang or something else. But now it seems like it's shifted. The corporations are either big enough or have enough influence in government where they are shifting, they're shifting the use of money to themselves and the control that goes with that. I mean, witness the privatization of our parking meters.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think it goes both ways on this because Yes, corporations are big and bigger, multinational global corporations. However, they still work within national regulatory frameworks. So there's still a politics that go on with corporations that are not removed from the influence of democratic feedback or popular resistance. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. These are not monolithic organizations. They're not monolithic structures. They can be persuaded, if you will, in various formats. I think that part of the problem, Michael, is that because there's so much money going on and so much money flowing around in the political process, that it's very difficult to regulate either the financial markets or business behavior. And the reason I say this is because what corporations depend upon is knowing what the rules are. Now, they may break the rules or bend the rules, but if you don't have rules to begin with, the chaos of the marketplace means that they can't even earn profits. And so for them, they want a framework that they can work from. But the question is that framework acceptable and supportive of common working people? And so far, what we've seen, that it's not been that way. And I think that's the problem, is how do we democratize corporations so that they don't work on a top-down basis, but rather work on a democratic basis in order to create the kind of not just products, but work environments that people can depend upon. I mean, I don't want to get off on my high horse here, but I have to say it's really makes me sad to see so many people being cast out of their homes, so many people that are losing their jobs, that have nowhere to go. And they're just sitting there in frustration and rage and anger looking for somebody to blame for this. And so you have the Sarah Palins, the Glenn Becks, the Rush Limbaughs, the Tea Party movement trying to take advantage of people who are seriously hurt and seriously ill and are finding that nobody is looking out for them. And they're being taken advantage of by both Republicans and Democrats. This is part of the problem that we're facing. It's a humanitarian problem. It's not just in Haiti. It's happening right here in Detroit. It's happening in our backyard in Chicago. This is not this is a foreign policy issue and a domestic policy issue.
Well, with the coming of Obama, we had a lot of hope. Some of us still do have a lot of hope, and we also are aware that things will not be easy. Those of us, probably progressives, whether or not we supported Obama or not, or want to support him, we certainly would blame earlier administrations on some of the malaise and the difficulties that people are having to endure now. What, as a sociologist and political scientist, what is your take on all of a sudden it seemed to turn, the attacks on Obama, the attacks on his program, the entrenchment of the conservative forces and trying to spread ill will around not only our country, but our president, but our country.
Sure. Well, I think it's a complicated issue, but let me just say that I was one of those people in Grant Park in November, teary-eyed for the first time in my life, that I could feel good about a mass movement of people that I could see in the streets that weren't all negative. Many of us had high hopes. At the same time, being a sociologist, I was also a critical thinker and knew that he probably could not deliver on those hopes. Not because he wasn't interested, but because the constraints he has in his office are severe because of the influence of corporate money and political power that goes on. He as much as said this, that I cannot do this by myself. The problem has not been Obama. The problem has been the lack of an organized left opposition. Unlike the right, which has organized around the Tea Party movement and Sarah Palin, the left has fragmented, and disintegrated in large parts and doesn't provide a coherent group. Part of this has to do with the unwillingness to criticize Obama's positions. And I disagree with that. I think that everybody needs to be critical of what they're doing, including Obama. As much as we might love the guy, we have to be critical of his policies. And I think when he brought in the financial cabinet that he did, that were the people responsible for the financial crisis, should have been a dead giveaway that this is not going to be an administration that's going to accomplish progressive reform, much less health care. And I think that many people caught on to this really quick. So the criticisms, I think, are valid. It doesn't mean that we don't love the guy. It just means that the critique of his policies have to be done from a position that asks the question, who benefits? who really benefits from these policies? Who comes away at the end of the day with a better portfolio, a better livelihood? And what we've seen so far is it's not common working people. It's primarily the banks, it's the financiers, and it's the people who call the shots at the top. That's why people are pissed and they're upset.